Hello everyone, welcome for today's review. Today we feature the cotton candy switches and the pewter switches. And I will give you a comparison between these two switches, which I like more and which I prefer. Alright, so before we start, this review is powered by Squishy Types. So I get a lot of my switches and my modding needs from Squishy Types. Do check them out. A lot of good switch options in their store, very good customer service. Again, I try to keep my review as objective as possible. All right, so as you all know, I am a linear guy. I prefer linear switches, and throughout the past few months, I have experienced and tried a lot of linear switches in the market. I started trying tactile switches last year when I went into the hobby, and even that, I only have the U4T as my standard for what a good tactile switch should be. Because right after the U4T, I transitioned to linear switches and the rest is history. However, in the community, there are a lot of people saying good reviews about cotton candies and the pewter switches and them being light tactile switches. So when you say light tactile switches, they have a smoother and lighter tactile bump compared to your traditional tactile switches. And in my experience, I don't really like tactiles because I find them a bit tiring for my fingers. And the main reason actually being is that I prefer and I love the smoothness of linear switches. The point that when you press a switch from the downstroke to the upstroke, everything is so smooth. I really love that feeling. So I'm not sure if it's just me, but sometimes I perceive the tactile bumps in my fingers as being somewhat scratchy. And I think that's what turned me off. Although again, I told you I am not an expert on tactile switches, so I may be wrong. My standard for a good tactile switch is the Boba U4T. I love how that sounds. I love how that feel. Really strong tactile bump. And I still use it from time to time. So, these switches are not totally brand new. They've been in the market for quite some time. And I did my research, watched some YouTube videos, and really got me curious because they have a pretty good review. And a lot of people say that if you love linear switches and you want to explore the tactile world, this could be a good entry point. So I tried them out. So here's the spec sheet. I compiled it for you. They're both light tactiles. The price point is on the high tier spectrum of switches. They're not considered budget switches, with the pewters being a bit more expensive. The material breakdown are as follows, and MWPE means ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Similar spring weight and length, and they are both factory lube. I did a compilation of what I think the sound profile of these switches are. Right. So the cotton candies versus the pewter switches. Smoothness stock, the pewter has a bit of an advantage. So again, my ranking system is 1 to 5. So 5 being the smoothest. So the pewters on stock probably would be around 3.5 and the cotton candies would be around 3. Once lubed, however, they are both really good, both really smooth. Sound cohesiveness, I don't know how to really term this feature, but for me, there are switches that sound loose and there are switches that sound cohesive or solid. All right. I feel that once lubed, the pewter has an advantage in terms of cohesiveness. The cotton candies kind of have some looseness in the switch in them. Stock, very noticeable, but once they're lubed, it improves a bit, but not as good as the pewters. All right. In terms of volume, they are not the loudest switches out there, and they're not also the most muted ones. I'd give the cotton candies around 3.5 and the pewters around 3. So with the cotton candies being slightly louder than the pewters. For pitch, So this is how high or low pitch the switches are. The cotton candies I would classify as being clocky to clacky, around 3.5 to 4, and the pewters being on the thocky to clocky side of the spectrum, around 2.5 to 3. Alright, in terms of tactility, again, both of these switches are light tactile switches. When I lubed them, I lubed even the stems and the foot of the stems and the springs and the leaf very lightly, very lightly. And even so, the cotton candies would have a more prominent tactile bump as compared to the pewters. Once lubed, the pewters is almost at the level of, well, it's not linear. You can still feel the tactile bump, but it's very light, lighter compared to the cotton candies. All right. Can you use these switches stock? For me, no. They're not the scratchiest, they're not the loosest sounding switches out there. Maybe a lot of people might be content with it being stock, but I personally would lube these switches. All right, so bottom line, conclusion, these are good switches, and for the price, I'd expect nothing less. So the experience is very unique. The experience of typing on light tactiles is very unique. It is what it is. It's a light tactile switch, and I really enjoy it. Would I recommend them? Yes, I would recommend them. Which would I prefer? I would prefer between the two. I would prefer the pewters. It sounds cleaner to me, more cohesive. The sound profile is also to my preference, a bit more on the deeper sounding profile, and really smooth. So that's it. So I hope you find this review useful, guys. I have a lot of sound tests at the end of this video. Enjoy the ASMR, enjoy the sound test, and I will see you in the next video.